Okay, cool. So, welcome to What It Takes to Be an Entrepreneur. This is the sixth event in this year's What It Takes series, organized by the Alumni Relations team, featuring alumni speaking to current students and recent graduates. My name is Alex Jones, and I work for We Network. Perhaps you may have seen me before because I run the social media channels, and we run a couple of series called Secrets of the Side Hustle, and I've made a few TikToks and that kind of thing, so maybe you've seen me before, or perhaps you've heard my voice on the Passion Hustle podcast that we run. But yeah, no, so I'm delighted to be here today. And before I introduce our speaker, there's a couple of housekeeping rules that I should sort of just mention first, briefly. Firstly is that this talk is being recorded. It will be edited and made available on the Alumni YouTube channel within the next couple of weeks. The second thing is your camera and microphones. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you should be able to hear me. So the second thing is that your cameras and microphones are automatically turned off. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, James. All they're saying, yes, your camera and microphones are automatically turned off, and the group chat is here for you to ask any questions to our speaker. And we'll kind of collect some questions throughout the talk, and then at the end of the session, we'll put some of the questions forward to the speaker. So yeah, so the recording of this event, which ends up on YouTube, won't pick up any of your usernames on the chat, so don't worry about that. So anyway, just to introduce our speaker, I am delighted to introduce our alumni speaker, Sophie Metcalfe, who will be sharing her insights on what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Sophie graduated from Westminster in 2009 with a BA in journalism. She began her career as a broadcast journalist in radio, working at Stray FM in Yorkshire. In 2016, she left the world of radio to start up a marketing agency specializing in small and micro enterprises. The agency became a six-figure business in its first year. When COVID hit, the business lost key clients and they grappled with their own financial losses. The situation led Sophie to completely reevaluate and reposition, having learned that the small business sector can be volatile and easily spooked. In 2021, she launched Your Marketing Doctor, working with SMEs to help owners completely change their attitude towards marketing and to stop burning money. So yeah, over to you, Sophie.
Oh, thanks so much, Alex. Let me just pop my camera on. I can say hello, so you can all just see my face. Can you see me? And can you hear me? Just give me a quick nod, Alex, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thanks so much. That was a lovely introduction. My name's Sophie Metcalfe. Yep, I'm going to share some slides. So let's get started. This is what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I am the director of Your Marketing Doctor, and I'll explain as we go along a little bit about what I do in terms of as a business, really. Your Marketing Doctor was born out of COVID. This is a new brand that I launched in about October last year, and it's just been going from strength to strength in a really short space of time, and I'm really excited to see where it goes over the next few months. So I'm on LinkedIn. If anybody's on LinkedIn, please feel free. I know some of you have already connected with me over the past couple of weeks. Please do feel free to connect with me because I do like to put quite a lot of content out there. Have been a bit quiet in the last week, actually. And usually my sort of theme is very much about helping businesses. So if anybody is listening, is thinking about starting a business, you may be on your way to getting those first steps underway, starting your own business. I always like to help people out and pass on a bit of my knowledge and experience. So Your Marketing Doctor came from the previous business that I had, which was a marketing agency, and that was called the Sophie Group. So I was one of the founding directors of the Sophie Group. And the Sophie Group does still exist very quietly in the background, but we are at the moment phasing it out into new exciting things. One of the things is Your Marketing Doctor. But Your Marketing Doctor is just me. Essentially, I am sort of selling myself as a strategic marketing consultant. So kind of I'm the product, really. And I go out there and I help businesses. I'll go into a little bit more detail about what I do. But in the past as well, alongside the Sophie Group, I've also started 3 other businesses. One was a business network for women, specifically for women. One was a clothing line, and another was a retail scheme for small towns. And those 3 businesses have something in common, and that is that they only lasted about 12 months. And that is not a sign of failure at all. One thing you'll learn about me is I'm very much about going with the flow of life and seeing where my career and everything takes me. And when I have an idea, I like to give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, that's absolutely fine. You learn from that, and then you take those lessons forward with you. So hopefully I'll be able to prove to you that starting a business is all about trial and error, and you just have to keep going with the flow until you get it right, making those little mistakes and taking little risks as well. So that is me. Obviously, not a random person. That's me. I graduated from Westminster in 2009. Got a few more wrinkles since that photo was taken. And when that photograph was taken, I was absolutely obsessed with becoming a journalist. That is all I ever wanted to do from quite a young age. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to become a journalist. I wanted to travel the world and tell the stories that meant something and were making a difference. As you will hear, I kind of hit a career ceiling at the age of about 25. I became a journalist very quickly, and it took a lot of hard work, and a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into my career. And then at the age of 25, suddenly decided, actually, I'm not really going to go anywhere further with this. So I took a very big chance and took the leap into self-employment. Wasn't alone. I had a partner with me, my business partner, who's still my business partner. He's gone off in a slightly different direction from the Sophie Group as well. But it was a big leap and it was a big risk, and I don't regret it at all. So that was me, 2009, and this is me now, 2022. In 2021, in November, this November just gone, I graduated again, and I got a level 6 diploma in professional marketing. And it was really important for me to try and do that. To prove to myself that I still had a bit of academia in me. I was never really much of an academic, but I kind of wanted to give it another go and try and sort of learn a bit more and take my career that has now evolved from what it was before into what it is now, take it into this new exciting direction. So I'm now, because of that, a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I'm working towards becoming a chartered marketer, which is just a really, it's an accreditation, but it's quite a hefty accreditation, which will just step my business up another level. And that exam is in May. And like I said, I'm not the most academically minded person. And so an exam is something I'm a little bit terrified of, but I'm sure I'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. And I'm also on the board of directors of York Professionals. And I've literally only put that on there because that sounds really grown up. I've just started, so that's a really exciting thing. That's helping businesses in the York region, helping them. It's a business network essentially, but it's about bringing businesses together and collaborating. So I'm really proud to be on the board of directors for that as well. So I thought I would give you some confessions, just to prove that I am human, even though I am a hardworking business person. I own a business and I can't do maths. Cannot do maths to save my life. I've been known to massively undercharge clients purely because I got the maths wrong on the invoice. So you don't need a certificate. You don't need a degree in maths. You don't need a degree in business studies, to be honest, to be a business owner. I do think it probably helps. I do think that knowing maths and understanding numbers helps, but I am absolutely useless at maths. Thankfully, my partner helps me with that. So it's all about having people around you that can help you with the things that you're not particularly good at. Second confession, I take days off when I'm tired. Do you know what? I have worked so hard in my career. I've burnt myself out many times. Nobody can tell me now that I am lazy or not working hard enough, because I spent about 10 years working myself to the point of illness, and I did that a few times, and it's really not a good thing. Being a workaholic is not a badge of honor, and I can tell you that now. So another theme that I will sort of be talking about a lot tonight is about mental health and running a business, because I'm a big advocate of that. So the first 5 years, or the first few years that I owned my own business with the Sophie Group, I took very few days off. I was working way past 5 o'clock. Probably sometimes there's quite a few occasions I'd be working till 10 o'clock and I'd just fall asleep at my laptop. It's not a badge of honor at all. So now I have learnt a lesson that you need to take days off. And some days, do you know what? I wake up and go, nah, I'm going to take the day off because I'm a little bit tired and I need to recharge my batteries. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. Likewise, I never read or answer emails after 5 o'clock or on weekends, because if you start to, if you're answering emails to customers at 10 o'clock, they do take advantage of you, and they expect more from you, and it's really not a healthy way to do business. So learn that lesson as well. That's another tough lesson. And finally, my other confession, I do play Fortnite, and I play with other business owners. We have a Friday night Fortnite club. And I thought I'd just tell you that, because it proves that owning a business means that you can still be cool and still be a big kid. So me and some of my business associates, we meet up on Fortnite on a Friday night and have a good game. It's a great way to unwind. So that's a little bit about me. So a little bit about what I do. And hopefully this kind of proves a little bit why I'm sort of qualified to, talk about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Because I've got quite a lot of experience running businesses and failing with businesses, but also my core business at the moment is to support businesses. So it's a big thing. It's how I make my money. So essentially what I am is a strategic marketing consultant, but I very rarely say that to people because they tend to glaze over. So if I meet another business owner, they'll say, "What do you do?" If I say strategic marketing consultant, they look at me and go, "Oh, very good. Good for you." And then the conversation dies. So this is a little lesson in selling yourself. It's a little lesson in general sales and kind of marketing 101, that you should always sell the problem to your customer and then how you solve it. So if a business owner comes to me and says, "What do you do? What's your business?" My reply is always, many businesses are scared of marketing because it's too easy to burn money. They don't know what works, and they have a bad experience, or they've had a bad experience of working with other marketing professionals. Now those are two things that I've picked up on in my time running a marketing agency. So what I do is I run something called a marketing clinic. So a business pays me to drop into their business, into their organization, work very closely with their team, and we talk and talk and talk about all their fears and frustrations with the business, and we look at their marketing and we figure out what's going wrong. I tend to work with businesses that are more established, that have been around for a while, but I do also work with startups as well. So people who are on the very early stages of setting up a business and helping them work out a marketing plan. I also don't tend to use the word strategy a lot, because that is a word that's been thrown around so much in the world of small business that the meaning has kind of disappeared. It's become a bit of an abstract concept, and people say, "Oh yes, we've got a marketing strategy," and actually they don't. They haven't worked out a proper marketing plan. And a marketing plan, which any business owner, if you're wanting to start a business, even if you're in the very early stages of thinking about it, you have to work out these three basic principles of marketing strategy. And one is, think about where you are now. So you look at all your problems, your frustrations, your fears, what resources you have, including financial resources. Where do you want to be? And that is purely setting targets. And then how do we get there? So with the resources that we have, how are we going to achieve those targets? How are we going to achieve those goals? That is it. That is all I do. But it can take days and days and days to work out, because there's so much to uncover from the business. There's so much that's gone wrong in the past that we have to understand that. So it's all about helping you navigate all the risks associated with a business as well. And that is essentially what I do. That is what I sell, and that's how I make my money. So what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Now, much like the term marketing strategy, I don't tend to use the word entrepreneur. And this is absolutely no offense to the person who came up with the name of this webinar. Now, I didn't want to change it. I didn't want to ask to change it, because I did actually want to make this point that the word entrepreneur, again, has become a bit of an abstract concept. People throw it around. They call themselves an entrepreneur when they don't actually mean it. I very rarely call myself an entrepreneur. I'd say don't strive to be an entrepreneur. Don't call yourself an entrepreneur. And I want to point you to a book that I highly recommend anybody reads. Now, this is called Rework, Change the Way You Work Forever. This book, although it's aimed at people who are in business, I would say is really valuable for anybody, no matter where you are in your career, whether you are just leaving university and you're embarking on a really exciting new career. I think this book is still really worth reading. It's all about removing toxicity from the work environment. It's really down to earth. It's a human approach, and it's all about just taking you as your authentic self to work with you and treating other human beings as their authentic selves. I think it's a fantastic book. It's really, all the chapters are bite size as well. So it's one of those books I have on my desk. And what I thought I would do is just read a little excerpt about entrepreneur, the word entrepreneur. This is an entire chapter. It's all of 3 paragraphs. So it goes like this. Enough with entrepreneurs. Let's retire the term entrepreneur. It's outdated and loaded with baggage. It smells like a members only club. Everyone should be encouraged to start his own business, not just some rare breed that self-identifies as entrepreneurs. I'm going to change that sentence because it said his. I'm going to say they. There's a new group of people out there starting businesses. They're turning profits, yet never think of themselves as entrepreneurs. A lot of them don't even think of themselves as business owners. They're just doing what they love on their own terms and getting paid for it. And that is the most important thing. So let's replace the fancy sounding word with something a bit more down to earth. Instead of entrepreneurs, let's call them starters. Anyone who creates a new business is a starter. You don't need an MBA, a certificate, a fancy suit, a briefcase, or an above average tolerance for risk. You just need an idea, a touch of confidence, and a push to get started. Like I said, this is always sat on my desk and I just pick it up and read it because sometimes it just brings me back down to earth when I need it. I've met so many people through my career who seem to believe that they have this higher power and call themselves entrepreneurs, and then seem to think that they can coach other business owners to get to that same level. And I kind of disagree with a lot of that because I think it's led by ego quite a lot of the time. And I think keeping your feet on the ground is much more important. So yes, you may want to become a business owner and to create a better life for yourself. That's exactly why we do this. But you should be driven by the ability to solve your customers' problems, no matter what you sell. That should drive you. If money drives you, that's absolutely fine. But your business will be unsustainable if you're not putting your customers' problems at the front of what you're doing. In fact, money should then become a byproduct of that, of what you're doing, of what you're selling. So business is just so much more rewarding and enjoyable when you think of it that way. So no offense to the person who came up with the name of the webinar, I just wanted to make that point. So a little bit about my journey. Obviously, I mean, I'm talking quite a lot about myself today. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a very ego person. I'm quite humble and I don't tend to like the spotlight much. But I do think that obviously I want to talk about my experience and pass on a little bit of my knowledge to you, which is why obviously while I spend this time talking a little bit about myself and my journey, I do really encourage you to ask lots of questions, not just about starting a business or being an entrepreneur, but also about your career journey. If you're just embarking, you're thinking about those first career steps, just ask me any questions in the Q&A and I will endeavour to answer them as best I can. So a bit about my journey. I graduated and I became a journalist. So what that really translates to, I graduated, couldn't get a job for a very long time. And I fought and fought and fought. I was fighting against this tidal wave of rejection, and I was constantly trying to prove myself that I could be a journalist and that I was going to be a good journalist. And I've always felt like I was having to prove my worth to a lot of people. And the early days of my career were really quite traumatic. And I think I carried a lot of that trauma with me when I started my first business, which is why it was a little bit of a turbulent time, those first few years being in business. But essentially what happened was I left university, I moved back up north, and then I walked into a radio station, a local radio station, which was based in Yorkshire. And I said, "Gives a job." And they went, "Well, how about some work experience?" And I said, "Absolutely brilliant. I'll take some work experience." So I started working there for free. It was supposed to just sort of be until I got a job somewhere else or until they could offer me a job. But I ended up working for free there for nearly 2 years. And I was quite naive in that I didn't realize, until I look back on it now, I realized that they were taking massive advantage of me and that I was kind of somebody that they were employing and not having to pay, essentially, because I ended up being the breakfast show journalist and I wasn't being paid for it. I mean, they would give me little sort of bonuses every now and again, but it wasn't payment, it wasn't a wage. These 3 quotes that are here, so the things that I've come across a lot, you know, that saying, we're looking for someone with a bit more experience, you know, that old, you can't get a job without experience, but you need a job to get experience. So it was like that constantly. I was constantly fighting against that in the first few years of my career. Then, of course, I came across the experience you'll get from us is worth far more than a salary. And of course, I went along nodding my head going, oh, yeah, absolutely. I see what you mean. I'm getting this fantastic experience. I wouldn't change anything about what I've done. I never have any regrets in any step of my career. I wouldn't change anything. And I don't resent any of it because it's got to me, you know, I've got to where I am now because of this journey. So don't get me wrong, but if I went back and did it again, I think I probably would have fought a little bit more for some money. But I don't think anybody should work for free unless it is a set term of work experience or an internship that's unpaid. It has to be very clear of the boundaries. And then that 3rd quote there, why don't you just get a proper job? My mum said that to me recently and it made me laugh a lot. So I thought I'd include that on the slide. But that's my journey. You know, everybody's different. It was quite difficult for me and I ended up with quite a lot of trauma, like I said, that I carried through into starting a business. So I would say if you want to start your business, you want to work for yourself at any point in your life, don't rush into it and go out there and get some experience. And that kind of goes against what I was saying before. But I would say that the real world experience that's really worth it is working for a small business or a micro business. So first of all, the competition will probably be a bit lower if you try and find a job with a smaller business. However, keep in mind that if you're wanting to gain that experience to start your own business one day, working with a small business is really worth it because A, you'll learn to multitask and you will become multi-skilled. Because when you work with a small business, generally what happens is that you are given lots of different bits of responsibility. So you may have been employed into one role. However, you have to be a chameleon because generally resources are a bit more scarce. So you're asked to do and take on a lot more responsibility. Secondly, you also learn to deal with customers and suppliers face to face. And I think that is absolutely crucial. You have to learn to deal with humans and speak to humans face to face. I think that is a really big skill that takes quite a long time to hone. I know it sounds really ridiculous, but talking to people, selling to people, dealing with customers face to face, even on the phone, picking up the phone and dialing a number is actually quite scary when you're embarking on the early days of your career. So I do think that working for a smaller business gives you that opportunity to kind of hone those skills. And if you're willing with a small business as well, generally, you will get more responsibility and that teaches you to carry the weight of a small business on your shoulders a little bit, because I do think that's something that you need that strength and you need to understand the gravity of what you're actually trying to achieve. And then my second point there is enjoy working for terrible bosses. Now, at some point in your life, it is likely that you may come across somebody who is a really terrible boss, someone who doesn't know how to manage a team, somebody who doesn't know how to talk to their customers, someone who's just generally terrible at managing people. There are a lot of them out there. I've dealt with so many. I've worked for a couple, and I think I've dealt with quite a lot as clients as well. So the reason why I'm saying enjoy working for terrible bosses is that it's actually really good experience and you learn how not to do things, because although you may resent that time in that role, which you will do, it does teach you how not to do things, and it teaches you, and you really pick up on what they're doing wrong and you think, well, actually I would do that differently, and you start to develop this really good perception of what's right and wrong in business. So I would say make the most of those situations. So let's have a look a little bit about when I started the Sophie Group as an agency. So on the left hand side we have the success and what that actually translated to. So what it looked like from the outside, that we were quite successful, so which we were. We started on the dining room table, which is always a great story. That's how a lot of businesses start. And then within our first 12 months, we were making a decent chunk of money. And we were really proud of ourselves, and the momentum was building, and we were like, yes, this is fantastic. We're winning business left, right, and center. And then in that first 12 months, we took on our first office, and then we had a team of 5 people within our 3rd year. And that was all pre-COVID. So that all sounds great on paper. That's really successful. And that was the story that I always told people. And people were like, you're doing so well, keep going. And I'm like, yeah, fantastic. But actually, how that translated, wasn't a happy story, really. So first of all, we started on the dining room table. It was really difficult because it meant we had absolutely no boundaries between business life and home life. And that is difficult. And I know at the moment we're living in a world where working from home is a real thing. And if you've been at university and you've had to study at home, I hope that you may understand a little bit about that the boundaries are really important, and that you become quite isolated, and it is really difficult. And then making 6 figures in the first 12 months as an agency, what that translated to, it meant that we were saying yes to absolutely everything, including clients that we didn't particularly enjoy working with. So that was always something that I look back on and have learned a massive lesson from. Learning to say no is really, really important. I'll go into a bit more detail about that later. So then we took on an office. Translation of that was actually quite good. I really enjoyed that. I loved having an office, and I still love having an office. We've moved now into a bigger office. We've been in this office for 3 years, this office that I'm sat in right now, which is a little bit empty because obviously we haven't got any staff. There's just myself and then my partner who's going off and doing his own thing. So technically most of the time it's just me sat here by myself with 5 empty desks, but I'm not going to get rid of it because I absolutely love just having this little sanctuary of work away from home, and it helps me set those boundaries. So then we had that team of 5 in our 3rd year. What that translated to, I was an absolute workaholic and I had no time or experience to manage the team properly. Now, when I said about taking note of bad bosses, I'm pretty sure the people that I used to employ probably think the same about me. They've probably learned quite a lot on how not to do business. And it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't setting out to be a bad boss. I wasn't, trying. I was trying to be the best boss that I possibly could be, but I didn't have the experience to manage those people properly. So they were lovely people, and I'm sure they don't think that, but you did learn from these experiences massively. So how we adapted the business, or how I've adapted from the Sophie Group to Your Marketing Doctor. So the Sophie Group, as an agency, business was really volatile. Working in the small business sector means that they're quite jumpy. When something happens, like COVID, they all of a sudden, generally business owners tend to batten down the hatches and they'll cut their spending. And usually the first thing to go is marketing, which is a bit counterproductive. So business was quite volatile. We were constantly over capacity just because we were saying yes to everything. It meant that I had unhappy staff, and I wasn't meeting client expectations. And then, of course, when COVID hit and they were cutting that marketing budget straight away, it meant that we lost all our key clients when COVID hit. So it was, I'm making it sound like a really bad story. It wasn't. There were really great times. There were highs, there were lows, but I learned a lot from those lows. And that's when COVID hit, I was able to stop. When that work stopped, I was able to actually take a breather, and I was really grateful for that time, even though obviously COVID was awful, and a lot of businesses suffered quite badly. I took the opportunity to really slow down and go, right, how do I correct this? How do I get back into a situation where my business is a happy place to be? So Your Marketing Doctor is now just me. I've actually taken the decision not to take any staff on. I want it to be just me, and I would rather work with collaborators. So I'd rather work with other businesses and help bring money into other creative businesses. So, for example, I work with a brand consultant who I bring into projects, and he gives his input. We work really well together, but then there's no pressure there of actually having employees. Because I've got that really clear proposition where I'm only selling the problem, I'm attracting the right customers. And likewise, I'm only saying yes to the ones that I really want to work with. So I'm not putting pressure on myself. I'm not setting ridiculous targets. And what I'm finding is by doing this and slowing down and being more picky with people that I work with, I'm finding that my business is actually growing at a really nice rate and I'm earning more and more money. I'm not driven by money, but it's just a really nice byproduct. So it's a really nice byproduct. It's great. I love it. But it's, I'm not, money isn't my big driver. My driver is actually helping businesses grow. So I like to think clients value my expertise as well. So you can see how I've taken those tough decisions to evolve the business into what it is now. So what would I do differently? I would definitely say mental health comes first, no matter what you do, whether you want to start your own business, whether you're thinking about that one day, or you're embarking on those first steps in your career, always put your mental health first. So set those really strict boundaries. Your work is work, your home life is your home life, and do not mix the two. Don't be sat on the sofa at night answering emails to your colleagues or to your clients. Don't overwork. 9 to 5 is absolutely acceptable. I say 9 to 5, obviously shift work may be different, but I'm using that as a term as make sure you're only working what you're supposed to be working. If you're doing overtime, make sure you're getting paid for that overtime. And also admit to your struggles, always openly talk. It's like anything in life, mental health is quite prevalent and has been, thankfully, for the past few years. And it's all about talking and opening up. And that is exactly the same in business or in your career. Talk about your struggles, talk about anything that you're not finding easy, anything to do with your colleagues, and find somebody within the organization that you're in to be able to open up to. If you work for yourself, and make sure you open up to other people, find a network, find a business network, build relationships with other business owners and sit down and talk to them, because everybody usually will have similar struggles and you'll be able to help each other out. So that's really important. So other practical advice to start a business if you're thinking about it. Like I said, those boundaries are really important. Co-working space is something that is fairly new in York. I'm based in York, in Yorkshire, obviously. And co-working space is something that has just sort of appeared around here, but I'm pretty sure in London and in other cities, it's probably been around for quite a while. And generally what it is, it's office space that's no longer occupied by one single business, and the landlord or whoever owns the building turns it into what's called co-working space. So there'll be lots of different desks in there, and you can go in and rent a desk for a day, or you can rent it for a sort of fixed term for as long or as little as you like. But I would definitely say that if you're starting a business or you just need space away from home, somewhere that is a nice bustling environment with other like-minded people, co-working space is perfect, and you will find it in any city. Secondly, incubator programs. Now, I did a bit of research and I understand that Westminster has an incubator program. I work with the University of York and they've got a fantastic incubator program called Phase 1. Incubator programs are where they're there to incubate your business. So if you've got a great idea and you're putting together a business plan, you can go and pitch that to them. If you're accepted and you meet the criteria to become part of that incubator program, you then get that co-working space generally for free. Every incubator program is different. So I know this is the case in York. You get that co-working space for free for 12 months, and then you get access to mentors, workshops, and that kind of thing that really helps, all that invaluable advice that you need to get your business started. If I'd known about that, or if anything was like that, presented to me when I was starting my business, I would have jumped at the chance to have been part of it because it's so invaluable. Likewise, looking for funding and grant opportunities. I never knew this was a thing when I was starting a business. I knew that you could go and get loans from the bank for a business, but there is so much funding out there. There is so much money out there that are in pots sat there with local authorities usually, that's designated for small businesses, for startup businesses, for marketing, for helping you getting off the ground. So always look for funding and grant opportunities as well. And a big point, don't scrimp and expect help for free. This I see happen on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of I'm hearing myself again there. Sorry. Got a bit of feedback there. There's a lot of businesses out there that I've come across that have sort of, you know, the saying, you buy cheap, you buy twice. It's like that. So businesses that have, or business owners that have gone to perhaps their friend that does a bit of web design, or they've gone to an agency and they've said, I haven't got a lot of budget for a website, or I haven't got a lot of budget for my marketing, can you help me? And then whoever they're talking to will say, yeah, we'll discount it, or yeah, don't worry, mate, I'll do it for free. Generally, it goes wrong, because if you're undervaluing that service that you're asking for, if you undervalue it, if you don't have the correct budget for it and you can't pay for it properly, it'll be a half-assed job, basically. Excuse my French. It won't be done properly. Your mate who's a web designer won't, you know, they'll get halfway through the project and something else may come up that is being paid for, and they'll turn away from your project. It happens so much, and I cannot stress the importance of not expecting things for free and not asking for things for free. Great if you do, and you do trust that you're going to get a quality product at the end, or a quality service and the right things that are done for you. But generally, I will always say, just make sure you get the money together to be able to get started properly in the right way. Don't know what happened then. I got a bit of feedback, so I do apologise. So I'd say employ and work with people who are more experienced than you. I made the mistake of always looking for people that were either completely inexperienced, and the problem I found was I was the most experienced person in the organisation, in the business, and then when I needed support on certain things, I found it really difficult. That's not to say that people without experience aren't valuable for your company, but where you need certain areas of expertise, it's so important to try and find mentors or employ people, bring people into the business that have got more experience than you in certain areas that you're perhaps not as strong on. Delegation as well. This, I suppose, can be applied to anything in life. Don't take everything on yourself. Another massive mistake, and this is the reason why I was a bit of a workaholic, because I didn't delegate and I didn't allow the other people in my team to do what they should have been doing. I kind of said, well, I'll do it, don't worry. Or I was a bit scared to say, do you mind doing this? Actually, no, I'm not going to ask you. I'll do it. Don't worry, I'll do it. And then just completely running myself ragged. So delegation is key, and knowing how to be a team player. And there is no room for ego in any business or any job. Put your ego away. Don't build yourself up to be this superstar. Actually, stay humble, keep your feet on the ground and learn from the people around you, and be willing and show willing to learn from the people around you, because I think ego can set you up in the wrong way. Absolutely. So I would say that my biggest lessons in business life, make lots of mistakes and learn from them. Always be honest to your customers, keep your feet on the ground and learn to say no. So making lots of mistakes, never feel like you're a failure. Like I said before, I started 3 other businesses in the past that didn't go quite as I expected, didn't get past the 12-month mark, but that's okay. I learned from those. I learned from everything that I did wrong. I know exactly what went wrong in those businesses, in each of those businesses. And I've carried those with me. So just to give you a bit of an idea of where I'm going now. So Your Marketing Doctor, although that's my core business and that's my kind of absolute passion in life, I've got 2 other ventures in the sidelines. So those 2 ventures are kind of born out from those other businesses that kind of went a little bit wrong and didn't make it through past that 12 months. Taken all those mistakes and I'm putting those into 2 new ideas, and I'm really excited about them. Any entrepreneur, you know, you may look at someone who's really successful and think, God, they just got it made. They know exactly what they're doing. Yes, they do. But for every successful business or brand that they have created, there's probably 3 or 4 ones that didn't make it. Those 3 or 4 ideas that didn't quite work out, or something went completely wrong. So never just assume that being an entrepreneur means that you're emanating success. It's not about that at all. It's always about making mistakes, owning those mistakes and learning from them. So always being honest to your customers. I mean, that is just a general life. Always be honest. It's just a general piece of advice. I suppose what that relates to is that ego thing as well, and overinflating claims. So overinflating what your product does, making these huge big claims that aren't quite true, or just bending the truth a little bit. It never works out. Always be honest in what you're selling. Always be honest about yourself and what you are. If you're going into an interview, don't overinflate your skills or your experience. Just be truthful, because a potential employer is going to want to know exactly who you are authentically. And they're more interested in that than any bold claims. So always be honest. Keep your feet on the ground. Again, ties in very similar with that. Always stay humble, and learn to say no. So the other big lesson that I learned, obviously, was saying yes to lots and lots of work. Always saying yes, going, yes, 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 we're winning business, getting all these referrals, we're bringing all this money in, this is fantastic, yes, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden realizing that you don't have the capacity to be able to actually take on all these projects. So again, a key lesson to take with you in whatever job you do or whatever business you go into. Always learn to say no. And that is the end of this section. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, please do connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Sophie Metcalfe, MCIM. I like to put those letters after my name because I've earned them. Or if you're not on LinkedIn, you can email. Please do email me with any questions, or any questions further that you perhaps don't want to ask in front of everybody. Or if you've got any advice down the line, you want a bit of perhaps someone to look over your CV, I am happy to do that for you. Absolutely. So that's it. And I think we're going to go into a Q&A session now. So yeah, what questions have we got? I'm going to turn my camera on. How do I stop sharing this? There we go. I found the button. There we go.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sophie. That was excellent. I really enjoyed particularly your insights about taking care of your mental health, because I think that's definitely something that everyone has to really focus on after the pandemic and really spending so much time working from home. So it was great to talk about that and be so open. But yeah, as you said, there's been loads of questions being fired into the group chat. So if I just kind of ask them over to you, and then if you go ahead and answer them. So the first one comes from Bunme, which is, I've just turned my hobby into a business after I saw the demand and need. However, I don't have a team, and I've just hired a PA who has been amazing with this transition. What advice would you give to someone like me who is running a business by themselves and is looking to build a team of like-minded individuals?
Oh, good question. Just repeat that for me again, because it's sort of, I don't know if it was my AirPods, just the start part of the question didn't quite make it to me.
Yeah, I'll just do the end. What advice would you give to someone like me who is running a business by themselves and is looking to build a team of like-minded individuals?
I suppose that's a big question, really. I suppose my biggest advice is don't rush. Don't rush into it. Don't rush into building your team so quickly. It's, if you're in a position to take people on and you're trying to find like-minded people, it's so tempting to just go out there, throw the job adverts out there, try and find the right people, and bring in the people as quickly as possible. But recruiting the right people takes a lot of time, and you may find that the first 10 people that you see, or the first 10 people that you talk to aren't the right people. They aren't quite gelling with what you're wanting to achieve. Don't worry about that. It does take a lot of time. Likewise, if you get on with somebody in an interview, you're taking somebody on, or you're interviewing somebody who doesn't quite have the right experience that you're looking for, or isn't, the quite match in terms of business, but you like them as a person and you're confident that they're going to bring something a little bit different than what you were expecting, then that is a good thing to go for. But I think the biggest piece of advice really is just don't rush it and take your time. Does that answer the question?
I think you've done a good job there, yeah. Thanks. Cool. So the second question is surrounding a bad boss. So the question is, currently sticking it out, working for a terrible boss, all for the experience and what not to do. But I do think that the toll it takes on someone's confidence, especially if they mistreat their employees, is quite damaging to someone who hopes to start their own business in the same sector. How do you suggest not transferring the trauma from a bad boss onto starting a business and turning it into a learning curve?
Well, I suppose it kind of without knowing the context and actually what's going on there, I think, like I said, obviously I said enjoy working for a terrible boss when I was talking before. That can be really difficult. I understand and I completely feel where you're getting from. I would say just be patient, but put your mental health first. If it's too much for you, then get out of there. It's not worth it. Sometimes it's just not worth spending the time. It's not even worth it for your experience, for gaining that experience to stay there. You have to be happy as well. So take what you've learned already from them. So you know how they talk to people, you know how they talk to you. Take those moments, remember them, and think, I would never talk to anybody like that. If I talk to somebody like that when I start a business or in my next job, it's going to end up the same way. Think about how you feel, how that boss is treating you. And although, yes, when I say carry it into your next job, your next venture, really what I mean is just remember how it made you feel, and that you know that's, you know, you're never going to treat anybody like that. So I'm sorry for you that you're in a position like that. And yes, okay, you may feel like you're gaining the experience. You're in that job just to get that experience, but put your mental health first. And, you know, there is no shame in saying, do you know what, I've had enough, I'm going to go, because I'm just not happy here. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Brilliant. So the next question is, what advice would you offer someone who has lots of business ideas but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, I've been there. I've got loads of ideas. I'm starting with 2 this year. Like I said, again, don't rush it, and actually pick one that you feel you are in the best position right now to be able to try. So think about all your ideas. Think about how you're going to sell those ideas. I don't know if this is ideas for products or services, or just generally an idea for a business. But what I would say is think about where you are right now and what resources you have available and what skills you have to be able to take it to fruition. So if you've got a really elaborate idea, but you don't quite have the skills yet, but you know that at some point that's going to be really good and that's going to be a really lucrative idea, perhaps put that on the back burner until you've got the right experience and resources in place. So start with something that's easy, is basically what I'm saying.
Awesome. Cool. So the next question is regarding targeting consumers. So in the case of a startup premium brand, for instance, that thinks it's targeting a specific target market via their product design, marketing, communication strategies, but in reality, when it comes to statistics or KPIs, the target market turns out to be different. Which area would you be looking at from a marketing perspective to put the company back on track?
That's quite, people pay me for these sorts of questions, you know. That's a really interesting question. It's quite an intricate topic, and I don't quite know how to answer that now. But I would say that nailing down your target market is really important, and then also looking at the wider market, so markets around that surround your target market. So your target market may be quite niche, it may be small, but also there may be opportunity on a slightly wider market as well. So expanding that. And then thinking about all the other markets around, and thinking about where you can go from there. You know, marketing strategies sometimes have to be a little bit flexible because things change, situations change, your market changes, trends change. So you have to make sure that your marketing strategy is quite robust and that you're able to be fluid. So when something happens or an opportunity opens up, that you're ready to take it, or crisis happens and you're ready to avert it, or you're ready to rectify it. So hopefully that answers your question. That is quite a big question, and I usually spend days with a business working on that. So feel free to email me if you want me to kind of go into a bit more detail, where I can. If you want to be a bit more specific and kind of ask me a few more specific questions around that topic, then please feel free to.
Excellent. Okay, so the next question is, what are the common problems and struggles your customers from the e-commerce and online retailers are facing when it comes to digital marketing?
There's always problems. There's always issues. Biggest problem for e-commerce Probably in the sector that I work, so I work with small business, so we're talking small business, small e-commerce. I would probably say is marketing budget, marketing spend, and then not getting it quite right. It's really, e-commerce is really competitive. So when you're advertising an e-commerce brand, for example, you're advertising your products, you're up against so much competition, and that's where advertising gets quite expensive. And sometimes small businesses, small e-commerce businesses can be a little bit, they don't want to take the risk of putting too much budget into ad spend, for example, Facebook adverts or Google ads or anything like that. So they don't quite put the right amount of budget in, which then doesn't get them the return that they need, which then means that they're scared of doing it again and scared of putting any more money in. So I would say that the ad budget, digital marketing budget just as a whole generally tends to sometimes be a sticky situation where business owners are a little bit scared of putting that risk and putting the money where the mouth is, really. But what you have to remember is that the only way that you're going to get with e-commerce, the only way that you're going to get custom is through ad spend, potentially. I don't know what the business is particularly or what the market is there, so I can't be too specific, but generally it's your digital marketing ad spend. You need to kind of be bold and put the money into it to be able to get it out.
Brilliant. Okay, so the next question is, can you run several businesses on your own? What are the pros and cons, and can different businesses be under one umbrella?
Yeah, absolutely. No rules in these things. If you want to run as many businesses as you can, go for it. Just be very careful of your time, your skill set, your experience, not burning yourself out. I, at the moment, have reined back. I've got one business and then I'm launching two. And the two that I'm launching are ones that don't need a lot of my time. So that's where entrepreneurialism comes in, because being an entrepreneur, my definition of it is actually being able to sell something and create a business that kind of self-operates, makes you profit, and you have an exit strategy. You can sell it on, move on to the next idea. So, yeah, run lots of businesses, run as many businesses as you want, but just make sure you have time for you, you've got those boundaries in place, and that you're not burning yourself out and spreading yourself too thinly.
Brilliant. And so the next question is, how do you go about finding your first customers?
Research. Depends what the product is. You have to marry up exactly what your product is to then think about exactly the buyer persona. So thinking about your customer and putting your customer as what we call the hero. So we have there's a 7-step storytelling framework that we use in a lot of our marketing clinics. So if you've ever come across somebody called Donald Miller, so he's an American business, I don't know what you call him, like a business guru type person who does loads of workshops, and there's a few videos of him on YouTube, and he nails down how to sell to your exact customer. So you define your customer. They are the hero, but they have a problem. You are the guide. So this is the storytelling framework. You then work towards the ultimate goal, so the happy ending. So have a look at Donald Miller and how he defines the customer, and then how you can solve how you think about your customer and how you can solve your customer's problems. So that's one way of looking at it. I think that's probably a nice, easy one for you to go and have a look on YouTube, and to start thinking about that. But again, I run like day-long clinics purely on defining the customer and how to sell to them. So going to find your customers is sort of comes under that banner, really.
Brilliant. Okay, so another question: how do we present our portfolio of work when networking or approaching an investor/funder when it's our first project? And how do we get them to trust with no real past projects?
It's a good question. Again, a bit like my story of coming up against closed doors quite a lot. It is really difficult, and I don't envy anybody who's trying to get their portfolio of work out there for the first time. It is difficult, but just keep chipping away. try and think about how you can make your portfolio stand out from anybody else's. Do something a little bit different and kind of perhaps surprise the person that's receiving it. So I'm sure there's lots of different creative ways that you can do that. I suppose it's a case of trying to find other people's portfolios or looking online at what other people do, and trying to think of a way to present it completely differently. And then it's the way that you approach a potential investor or employer. I suppose this sort of covers the whole spectrum, really. The way that you approach them, the way that you talk to them, the way that you contact them and communicate with them says a lot about you. If you are confident and to pick up the phone and say, look, I've got a portfolio, do you mind if I share it with you? That's probably going to be more valuable than you just sort of dropping an email to somebody. And this is kind of like an age-old problem that it's really scary to put yourself out there. But I think just having the confidence to do it differently, to put yourself forward, to be human and to be authentic and to show a bit of vulnerability to anybody that you're trying to present to. I think that goes a long way rather than sort of dropping emails here, there and everywhere.
Brilliant. So the next question is, how do we win projects while making sure that we don't undersell our services?
How do you win projects? I don't quite understand what that means. Does that mean, should I answer that as if that says, how do we win work, perhaps?
Yeah, or win clients, I would take it as.
Win clients?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, okay. Without trying to undersell, I suppose that comes with trial and error a little bit of learning to sell yourself and sell your services. Again, without overinflating. So you've got two ends of the spectrum. You're either going to undersell yourself or you're going to overinflate and overpromise, and then overpromise and underdeliver is a massive thing that a lot of people come across. I would say it's a difficult one, really. It is just trial and error. Again, putting yourself out there, being confident in your skills and knowing that you have value to the person that you're selling to, and just showing that confidence a little bit, showing that, I know what I'm doing. I know my expertise is worth whatever I'm selling it for. I know that it's valuable to you. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm trying to give you a definitive answer, but again, it's taken me years to kind of get to a point where I know that I can walk into a room and I can pitch myself and generally win the work. That's not me being egotistical. I've just practiced it a lot. And it just come with experience, but keep going, keep chipping away.
Brilliant. So the next question is, if you're not possible to start your own business, what is the best way to work with somebody who is just starting off their own business and then be part of their growth journey as the company grows?
What's the best way? Yeah, I suppose thinking about exactly what your skills are, what your skill set is and what you have to offer. If you're not quite ready at this moment in time to start your own business, like I said, working for other small businesses is really valuable. But obviously, if you've got a friend or an associate that is starting a business and you can offer value in a particular area that they don't have, then that's great. That's gold, and that would start a really good partnership. So it's really sort of defining where your skills are, not spreading yourself too thinly again, and not trying to offer up too much help and not trying to offer up help in areas that you're not necessarily an expert in. Think about what your skills are and just sort of honing those, making sure that can be of the best value to the person that you're offering the help to.
Brilliant. So the next question here is, what's your opinion on CICs and making it as ethically profitable?
I don't know what a CIC is.
I don't know what a CIC is either, to be honest.
I don't know what a CIC is. Do you want me to Google that?
Community interest company.
Okay, community interest company. Do you know what? I've never worked with a community interest company. I hope to one day, because that sounds great. But I don't have the expertise to answer that question, so I do apologise. Didn't even know what the acronym stands for. There's a lot of acronyms in marketing, I will tell you that now. And sometimes I'll talk and spout off a few acronyms and people are like, what are you talking about? Again, this comes down to just talking like a human and trying not to speak in acronyms, because sometimes you'll come across somebody who has absolutely no idea what it means. So sorry, I can't answer that question.
Cool. So the next question here is, can you recommend any books in helping starters?
Any books? Donald Miller, like I said, is a great one. Really good. Do you know what? I actually have some on my desk. What have I got here? I have got Marketing Strategy by Jenna Tiffany. That's another good one. The Rework book is brilliant. And then I would say Donald Miller. There's another book called Yes, The Power of Persuasion. And I think it's something like 60 experiments to win business. It's something like that. I know it's called Yes, The Power of Persuasion. That's a really good book because it goes into the psychology of selling and really interesting, and it gives you loads of ideas. So yeah, that's a good one.
Brilliant. That's the end of the questions. If anyone else had any final questions to send in the chat now, then now is your opportunity. But if not, okay, we've got another one. So since you have graduated from a different field than marketing, did you have to go through any program for marketing?
I didn't have to. So I suppose we've got time for me to have a rant. So marketing is a wonderfully accessible industry. Anybody can just sort of wake up one day and go, do you know what? I want to work in marketing. And there is so much out there. There's so much out online. There are courses on YouTube. There are free courses through HubSpot. LinkedIn do courses on how to be a marketer, and it gives you all the basic skills. And that's basically how I started. Now, my problem with that now is that the industry is completely saturated with inexperienced marketers who are paid for work. This is going to sound really awful, but this is my big rant. It's saturated with inexperienced marketers who are paid for work by small businesses. Their budget is absolutely precious. They pay an inexperienced marketer who then doesn't provide a quality service, and they don't spend that money well, and the business doesn't see that money ever again. Now, this isn't the fault of the people who are going into the marketing industry. It's the fault of the marketing industry for not having robust enough regulation, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So in answer to your question, yes, I took it upon myself to do my level 6 diploma in professional marketing, and that's a very strategic level marketing. So it's not about, Facebook advertising, social media marketing. It's not about websites or anything like that. It is purely strategic business level, sort of management and above level. So hence why I wanted that qualification to then justify me going into businesses, because I've learned all the academic frameworks, all the strategic theory. I've learned all that, and I can now go into a business and charge them to pass that experience on. Also, I think my time in business has allowed me to be able to charge what I charge going into a business, because I've got that experience. So yeah, you don't have to have any qualifications to be a marketer, but I highly recommend that you go to the Chartered Institute of Marketing and you get a diploma. They do level 3 upwards, I think. Level 6 is the highest I think you can get. You can get a level 7, but that is postgraduate only, I believe. So there's a reason why I couldn't do the level 7, but kind of level 6. And then from that point, you can then work towards becoming a chartered marketer, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Hopefully from May, I will have that. That's the big exam that I've got to take. But being a chartered marketer means that you then have really robust, really high level accreditations. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but I'm really passionate about making sure that people, understand the gravity of the money that they're spending, especially when they're working with small businesses. With any business, the money they're spending is absolutely precious. And if you're being paid to do something that you're not really that experienced in, and actually that it's not right for the business, not every business needs to market on Facebook. So why do you need to be a Facebook manager and sort of sell that service to a business? And that happens a lot. You know, I'm passionate about that. So sorry, you got a rant there.
No, brilliant, brilliant. So the next question is, my friend spent £20,000 on Facebook adverts for his accounting business, but it made no difference in him getting new customers. What are the pitfalls on spending on digital marketing?
Again, it's knowing how it works. This is the simple answer. £20,000 is a lot of money for any business. And there are businesses out there that spend more. There are businesses out there that spend £5 a day. But Facebook advertising, social media advertising, any form of digital advertising takes a level of real knowledge and skill and a bit of tech knowledge of understanding how it works. Also, it's sort of 50% that, 50% the technical knowledge and 50% strategic knowledge. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fall down, is that strategic level knowledge, understanding and building the sales funnel that's really going to work for your business, and understanding exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve with Facebook advertising. So everybody's seen Facebook advertising. You know that it's generally tailored to your likes and interests and your demographic. But actually, what are those adverts trying to sell to you? So e-commerce is a great example. So when we were talking about e-commerce before, Facebook advertising is really effective for e-commerce as long as you've got the budget, because it's really simple sales funnel. It's show them a product that they're going to like, click, buy, that's it, done. If it's something like an accountant, it's not quite as simple as that. The sales funnel is a lot longer. It's longer in terms of process, it's longer in terms of time as well. And also you've got to be really specific on who you're targeting. So you may throw loads of money at it. You've got to make sure that what you get back is you get that back and more. You've got to get that return on the spend. So for an accountant, for example, what's that funnel? What are you trying to achieve? So you're showing them an advert for an accountant. Perhaps they're not in the market right now for an accountant, or they're not quite ready to use that accountant's services. So it's a lot more of a drip feed process. So it's less about the click, bang, buy. It's more about the awareness. Or you may have something there, you may have an objective like capturing their data, for example. You're wanting to capture their emails. So it could be like a downloadable white paper on something to do with accountancy. That person specifically really likes, or needs at that moment. So they'll have to put their email address in and their details in to then be sent a downloadable PDF of this white paper, for example. That means the business, the accountancy, has that person's details. They then get added to a marketing database and they can market them through a different channel. So it's the strategic side of it is really important. And I think a lot of businesses forget that. But obviously I don't know the context and situation around that particular incident. So it'd be really interesting to sort of get under the skin of that. Actually, if it was £20,000, I do a lot of problem solving, a lot of troubleshooting in marketing. So that one would be a really interesting one to understand what's gone wrong there. So yeah.
Cool. Yep. And the final question we've got here is, how do you work out how to set fees for your services?
Good question. Again, that's taken me since the beginning of running a business to figure out, and I still figure it out now. With time, if you're selling a service, so something like a marketing service, marketing consultancy, it's really difficult to put a price on it. Also depends on what part of the country you're in. I know that being in the north of England, I'm probably charging half of what a consultant in London would be charging. If I was working with a business down south, I'd whack my prices up. But it's really difficult. It comes with experience and kind of trying to gauge what your competitors are selling, and you own, what price they're selling at. You only get to learn that by actually going out there and selling. So you may, for instance, when I first started, I used to do social media management for £150 a month, which is absolute peanuts. And I didn't realize that until I started selling. And then you get to know people in the industry, you get to know other business owners. As you start networking, you start asking questions of somebody comes to you and says, oh, I'm looking for a social media manager. We've had a quote from so-and-so and, they're quoting £300 a month. What can you do it for? And then you start to learn, you start to gauge what your competitors are are charging, but it's a really difficult thing to do. It's really difficult to get right. But as you go along, you sort of learn what the right level should be. I still sort of struggle with that now. I mean, I'm a lot better at it. I'm doing consultancy, so I can charge a lot more, but I'm still sort of at a point where I'm like, should I charge more? I'm doing a massive project at the moment, which has been going on for about 4 weeks. So I think we've got another 4 weeks to go. I've given them an estimate, and what I've done is something a little bit different this time, is where I've estimated and I said, look, it's going to cost in this region, but I need to see how intricate this project is, because other things may happen as we go along and we may uncover different opportunities. So this is the sort of starting price. So expect that it may be a little bit more. It's not going to be under that, but it may be a little bit more. And that way you can kind of prepare your customers for sort of an inevitable price that's going to land on their in their inbox. So yeah, it's a really difficult one, that one. Hope that helped.
Brilliant. And yeah, okay, so the final question is, how do we get into networking?
Networking, like business networking. Look for networking groups is the simple answer. So every town, every city has lots of business networking. There are some national, sort of nationally known business networking groups out there, like BNI, for instance. I don't go to BNI. I'm not a fan of BNI because it's a very, it's quite, I'd say it's quite cutthroat, and it's very pressured. So you go into a BNI group and it's a little bit like being in an exclusive club where you're only allowed in if you pass so many referrals. I think this is how it works. This is how I think it works. And I've heard lots of people talk about BNI. But then there's some really nice, at the other end of the spectrum, there's some really nice networking groups out there. You'll have local ones. They crop up everywhere. Look for your breakfast networking. I've never known a business networking group that doesn't offer the first couple of sessions for free. So usually just find them, email them and say, can I come along? I'm quite interested in joining. And they'll say, yeah, come along for free. Or you'll pay like a really low fee just to turn up and, pay for the breakfast or whatever. So they're really accessible. They're everywhere. Just go along. Networking is quite difficult. I used to find it really, really scary walking into a room, because you kind of feel like you're under pressure to make small talk with people that you don't know, and a lot of the people it feels really pressured. So it's scary, but just go in with an open mind, a little bit of confidence. Take a deep breath before you walk in the room and go, I'm here because I want people to know about me and know about what I'm selling. Walk in the room. Walk up to the first person that you see and introduce yourself, and then it'll be fine from there. It's one of those things that you kind of have to do. That's how I win my business. The majority of my business comes from networking and then referrals. So I'd say it's about 50-50. 50% is me going out there to networking groups and talking to other business owners. 50% of my business comes from referrals. So I've worked with one business. They've thought I've done a fantastic job and they've passed me on to another business that they know. So you get to a point where it just becomes sort of second nature, really.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all we've got time for then. I think that's the last of the questions. But thank you so much for your time, Sophie. It's been absolutely excellent. Thank you everyone for your questions. It's been a really insightful session.
Thanks so much. I hope everybody got something out of that. Like I say, I'm available on LinkedIn. Connect with me, drop me a message, or you can email me, which I think my email was on that first slide. It was sophie@yourmarketingdoctor.co.uk. Nearly said my other email address then. yourmarketingdoctor.co.uk. Basically, go on the website, it's on there. Drop me a line, just say that you were on this webinar and I'm happy to talk. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So if everybody could just please complete the short evaluation survey, which is in the chat box now. And highlights from this event will be on the Alumni YouTube channel in the next few weeks. Please make sure to sign up for the next What It Takes event, What It Takes to be an LGBTI+ ally, taking place on Thursday, the 24th of February. And also just to mention that We Network has a load of opportunities coming up for any students who are wanting to start your business. We've got the Big Idea competition coming up soon, with applications closing the end of March. And we have lots of funding available So yeah, we have up to £22,000 in funding for 3 different categories, whether that's a freelance or an ideate category, which means if you're just starting up your business, or if you're a little bit more established, there's literally opportunities for everybody. So yeah, that is all we have time for. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks so much. Thanks. See you later, everybody. And good luck.